Hello, students, and happy Friday and happy end of Engineers Week, E-Week. Want to make sure that everybody gets down to the engineering atrium around between 11 and 1 because the college is going to be giving away some celebration gifts and you can spin the wheel and win prizes and swag and stuff like that. So great way to end E-Week. Reminder too, if you want to go to that Career Academy, give that QR code a try to see if you can still RSVP for that event. Speaking of RSVPing, I'd love for y'all to go to that Career Mixer March 9th. It's the Civil, Environmental, and Construction Engineering departments. Big mixer, 60 plus companies will be there. And it's not just the CECE majors. I worked in environmental engineering and consulting before going into academia, and I can tell you right now, I worked with all types of engineers. So there's opportunities out there for mechanicals, maybe not aerospace so much, but pretty much everybody else. So have a good look at that at that event. Want to let everybody know also that March 1st is the opening for an opportunity. The Burnett Honors College has what they call a second year entry program. And if you didn't get into the Burnett Honors on the first try as an incoming freshman, you do get a second chance. All right. So this opportunity really is for students that have gotten very involved in their first semester. They got a pretty decent GPA for their first semester as well. The way it works is you're going to complete part one of the application, which is just a vetting process to make sure you meet their criteria. Then they will send you an email that has the big long application, includes letters of rec and nomination and essays and all of that. So the sooner you get that vetting process done, the sooner you will get the email that opens up the application, and you'll have until the 15th to complete that. Reminder, the A2O opportunity has the scholarships from the college. So that's all disciplines. There are scholarship opportunities there for you. So don't let this money pass you by. Updates for the Great Naval Orange Race. Okay, well, congratulations to Kelly Tran. She is the freshman that submitted this, colorful and fun design logo for the Great Naval Orange Race, and she wins a $50 gift card from Amazon. Well, from me, but it's an Amazon gift card. And we're just really grateful to Kelly for taking time to share her creativity with all of us. And so this will be featured on the volunteer and TA t-shirts, any kind of literature, any signage, any social media. So we're really, really thankful to Kelly for her talents. Okay, regarding the groups, let's not become this meme, basically, right? Everybody has some talents. Everybody can contribute to the project. So make sure that that's happening and that you're doing your part. As you're moving forward, working on your boats and whatnot, a lot of people are going to say, oh, I'd love to have an orange race boat, and they get a can of orange spray paint. Do not, please, do not spray paint on any concrete surfaces. I'll come up to each year, I'll come up and look on the ground, and if I see the silhouette of a boat hull, I know I'm going to have a bad day. All right. So don't do that to me this year. If you spray paint, you just got to get on the grass. Do it on the grass because the rain will wash away the paint, or we'll mow it and it disappears. It doesn't disappear so easily from concrete. Okay, important. Hello, pay attention. So next week you're going to you're going to help us basically build the electronics boxes. You're going to start learning about the microcontroller systems that we've got to create those open loop or closed loop systems for navigating your boat around the pond. I do need to ask you to buy your own battery and lipo battery bag, the fire safety bag. Uh, Kind of a couple reasons. We've had trouble ordering the amount of batteries that we need. But on Amazon, when you buy one or two batteries, not a problem, not a problem. The bulk ordering has been a problem for us, and it could be not being able to buy that many quantities and bringing it on campus. I don't know what the issue is, but the bottom line is that we are going to ask you to buy your own battery and bag, safety bag. And also you want to make sure you see the updates in the granola rules, because it has any kind of changes that have happened, and we'll highlight them into different colors. So you want to pay attention to that. We are going to provide you obviously with the other parts. I know, I apologize, it's taken a little while. It took us a while to get the money and the accounts to buy the parts. And then of course, we came upon the beginnings of Lunar New Year and noticed that the supply chain was kind of stopping for a while. So it's been an issue, and I apologize. But yeah, we're going to be getting the parts soon, and hopefully you're working on that hull, okay? Because you got to have something to put the parts into. Today's discussion basically is about AI. Years ago, we had the Industrial Revolution where everybody built everything, and it was all a very physical thing. And then we went into this knowledge age where everybody was going to college, and computers were here, and the internet was here, and so knowledge became powerful and valuable. And so we entered what's kind of called the knowledge economy. Well, now we're in what's called the innovation economy, because with AI and ChatGPT and all of these different things that are able to do things that, used to take manpower to do it, that's really not the case. And even the president of LinkedIn, the CEO of LinkedIn, has said, hey, look, the economy is changing. We are out of that knowledge economy and we are heading into that innovation economy. With that being said, there's something called the 5 C's: creativity, curiosity, courage, compassion, and communication. And these are all skills that, we as humans still have, and we need to build them up, basically. We can use AI to help us through that process, but these human characteristics, those 5 C's are human characteristics. When my office here, I've got these chairs because when we sit down, when the GTAs, we all sit down, when I sit down with colleagues and we just talk and think of new ideas and creative ways to do things, it's amazing and it's wonderful. And that's the human characteristics that we need to build up. Quick example, a Falcon 9 rocket was amazing technology. It still is, but it's more commonplace. What you do with a Falcon 9 rocket, that's where the creativity and adapting to new opportunities comes into play. Who knew that we would be launching rockets to try and land on an asteroid to potentially mine it? Well, if we want to go to Mars, apparently that's what we're going to have to do. So again, it's creating all of these opportunities. Another thing that AI does that I absolutely love is it becomes what I call, and what other people have called, the great equalizer. It levels out the playing field. If you have a really cool entrepreneurial idea, you can use AI to create the marketing material that you need to help you estimate costs and where you're going to get parts and supplies from. All of these things used to take people to do, or you'd have to do it yourself, and now AI can help you. So regardless of your socioeconomic background, if you've got a great idea, AI can help you make it happen. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about AI, how to use it as a tool, but also don't forget, we need to sharpen our human skills. That AI can't replace, and that would be our creativity, our compassion, our ability to just grab something, look at it, and fix it, and just figure out what's wrong with it, and just fix it, just do it. That's where the human skills come into play. Now, at UCF, we are going to work with you, obviously, on teaching you the basic skills that you need to know. But engineering it's one of those, it's the long game. It's a career that you are just going to keep learning all the time. It's a lifelong learning career. So today, you're going to learn about AI, and we have a presenter from the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning. Miss Lori is amazing. She's fun, she's entertaining, and she has put together a presentation for y'all that's called AI Engineering, AI in Engineering, the tools, the trade-offs, and really thinking like an engineer. So have fun learning all about AI and how applying it to your engineering degree.
Hello, my name is Laura Udick. I'm with the Faculty Center here at UCF. Thank you for having me today. I'm going to talk a little bit about AI and how it applies to you and your role as engineer majors and also in the discipline. I want to start off by saying AI is not the enemy and it is also not magic. It's somewhere in between. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what AI is actually doing behind the scenes, how it's working, why effort and struggle still matter, how you learn, how you make yourself ready for the workplace, when AI actually supports that learning and when it hinders it, and some things about AI that you've probably seen for yourself, some hallucinations, some biases, and some assumptions that it's making. And then I'll end up with just a couple ideas on how to think like an engineer in an AI world. So thank you. I wanted to start by first mentioning this changes everything again, right? So we talk about this a lot in education. Something comes along and changes the way we've always looked at things. For one example is like photography. Before, when the camera came out, it was like, that's going to be the end of art, right? That's it. We're done. No more art. And actually, photography became a form of art, right? We also felt that way when Wikipedia and Google searches started at UCF. In education, people were really concerned then that students aren't going to know how to find quality information. They're not going to be able to find academic sources and use that information. Even when the word processor came out, it changed how we wrote. Before, we were writing everything by hand and then typing it up really carefully when using whiteout. Now we're moving paragraphs around and we're cutting and pasting and making it a very different process. So yeah, things are changing again, but that happens all the time. And AI is also not new. It's been around for a very long time. It's in everything that you do. It's on your phone. It's autocorrect. It's Google Translate. It's GPS. It's Alexa. When Amazon comes up with a list of things that they think you might also like, they're probably right because we're not that unusual. We're pretty predictable. So all of that is AI. So AI has been around for a long time. The difference is that AI is now part of a way that we can use it to access generated content. That's new for us. AI is already part of engineering. It shows up in all sorts of things: design and modeling software, optimization tools, simulations and digital twins, coding assistance and debugging tools. So the question isn't, will you use AI in engineering? You absolutely will. The question is how and when will you use it? And what do you need to do now to prepare yourself to use it in the workplace? And as you probably are aware of, engineering is not about answers. We tend to think if I get the right answer, everything's going to work out perfectly for me, right? But it's all of the learning happens when you're in the middle of the problem, right? That's where the learning happens. And so we're going through a series of reasoning through uncertainty. We're making and justifying decisions. It's sort of like a calculator. If you use a calculator before you understand, for algebra, before you understand algebra, you might get the right answer, but you have no idea what you're doing. So if a tool gives you answers too early, you skip the reasoning and you miss the learning. So how AI actually works as a large language model, I could go into a huge description of it, but for our purposes, it's not a database of information that it's drawing from, right? There's billions and billions and billions of parts of words, tokens, that are being constantly analyzed to see who they typically sit next to. So it might start with the sky is purple or the sky is stony, but enough times later it'll see blue. It might change it up to periwinkle or something later, right, to give it more interest to the viewer. But basically, it's using what it knows to predict. It doesn't understand a problem, even though it may sound like it when you ask what to do about someone who goes to. It doesn't know facts. It doesn't reason. It's just a predictability pattern. You may have noticed that it's wrong a lot with hallucinations. Some of the more famous hallucinations and errors that have been around lately are RFK Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again initiative had a lot of cited studies about different things that supported those views that were all made up. Someone did not check what ChatGPT came up with. Morgan & Morgan is just one of the law firms that is being firmed for having fake cases in its different sorts of materials that it's presenting. So people are using it and trusting it, and that's the first mistake when it comes to AI. And you've probably felt that or saw that yourself too. But it's very confident, right? It's very confident. It tells you exactly what the answer is. It doesn't, it sounds fluent. It does not flag uncertainty well. You can ask it to do that in your prompts, and you should say, how confident are you? High, low, or medium? But the errors can be very subtle and very convincing. But unfortunately, especially in your field, and engineering mostly right is often unacceptable. There is some evidence that hallucinations are not going to get better, they're going to get worse because the technology that mines all of the data is getting better and better, which means it's more and more data, which means there's more and more avenues for errors. So something to be careful with is just to really consider that it's not, we're not waiting for the technology to improve. One of the things that the research shows about AI and learning is not so great when it comes down to critical thinking skills. So there was a study done by MIT where they had two different groups of students, and one wrote with ChatGPT for 3 SAT essays, and then they wrote it with ChatGPT, and then they rewrote without it. Group 2 wrote completely on their own, and then they used ChatGPT to sort of fix it up. The ChatGPT first group, by the time they got to the third essay, they were pretty much just cutting and pasting. They had just gone, they had the lowest brain engagement. They did scans of the brain. They had progressive cognitive decline in creativity and critical thinking. All of those went down. And they couldn't recall their work, what was theirs and what wasn't when the tool was removed, even in the first and second drafts when they were really working on it. Those that use their brain only and Google search, so Google search is different than AI search, right? So we've got all of these options and that fires the brain on lots of loads to see, okay, here's more ideas and more ideas. It doesn't just package one. So those that did that had more neural connectivity and more engagement, better retention. They felt better about it. They remembered what they wrote. So when AI is generating answers for you, it's making you bypass the learning process, and your cognitive skills are reacting to that in a way that's not good for us as learners. But when the brain-only group, brain first, then ChatGPT, they showed increased brain connectivity. So they actually had more things firing when they had ChatGPT act sort of as a peer review. Because it was the same tool, but it had a better outcome because they'd already built understanding when they started. So the bottom line is kind of, search and think for yourself first, and then use AI to enhance what you already know. Don't use it to replace the learning process. And one other study that you might be interested in, Wharton and Penn put together, they asked AI, they had two student groups. One student group used ChatGPT to study for a calculus exam. And it had ChatGPT perform the practice questions, showed all of the answers, explained all the steps, really engaged with ChatGPT to do that. The other group of students did not use ChatGPT. They just did their own practice exams and a lot of practice questions, and a lot of those practice questions were incorrect, right? They got a lot of mistakes along the way. But at the end, they still outperformed those that were studying the correct answers. And it's because learning happens in the struggle, right? Not the output. So when you're getting something wrong, that's not failure, that's data. That's your brain going, oh, that's signaling to you what to adjust. Without that adjustment, and you're just skipping ahead just to the answer, you're removing that signal and you're really negatively impacting your learning. So right now in college, your job is learning how to think as an engineer or in general, but how to think, right? And AI makes you think you understand it when you don't, because it's really good at explaining things. It's just not how the brain works. So you're building mental models. When you're in college, you're learning how problems work. You're learning how to recognize errors, all those things you're doing. AI can hide those gaps in understanding and make incorrect reasoning look polished when it's not. So it makes you think you understand something when you don't. When you become an engineer and how you market yourself for a position and for a very nice salary, way better than education, you will find that employers don't just want correct answers, right? If they're expecting that. And if AI helps you get to that when you're at that point, that's great, right? That's efficiency. That's what efficiency matters. But they want engineers who can explain the reasoning and explain it to different people, communicate very clearly about that, adapt when conditions change, which is something AI does not do, and to think creatively. All of those things are what they want in addition to the correct answer. And while you're here, those 4 things are what you're focusing on. How do you get that? So they expect you to use these tools. Of course they do, but they hire you for your judgment and your reasoning. So I have this picture of money being burned because it's not cheap to go to school. And so think about the investment that you are making in your education. Are you really making it in education, or are you making it in your grades? And I will tell you that people are less concerned about grades. They are about the things that you can do later. So something to think about. The cost of over-reliance on AI tools, if we all did that and we just relied on that, it's very generic. You can tell that. I hope this email finds you well. Very generic, very shallow, and a very weak voice. It doesn't sound like you. It doesn't sound like anyone. So you want engineers who can't explain how they got an answer are less competitive and are easier to replace. Here's how it can help you. It can be really useful for clarifying concepts after class. I didn't get this. Explain it to me like I'm a 3rd grader. Explain it to me like I'm a consumer. Explain it to me like I'm a building manager, whatever. Generate practice problems. Here's the problem I got wrong. Give me 17 more like this, and then work them through yourself. Explain why my answer is wrong. I don't get why this is wrong. It's just marked that way. Brainstorming ideas. I know you have a big project you're working on. It's great for okay, what happens if I run this through here? What's the what if scenarios? What can go wrong? Even drafting documentation, when you've got it all done and you're ready and you just want to document how you've done it and explain that to people, it's perfect for that. It's really good at generating text when it comes from knowledge that you have. When it hurts and things that you should be cautious about is when you let it solve things for you and you watch it reason instead of practicing yourself, and you treat it as it's right, that it's authoritative. It's not. And if you copy it without evaluating it. So that's when AI hurts your learning. When you're using AI, another thing to be very cautious of is just that it hallucinates. It gets things wrong a lot. And if you've used it enough, you've seen that happen. And there's been things in the news where it's really gotten crazy too, right? It's not something you can trust. And I think we have this idea there's a glitch or there's bugs, they're working it out. And when they do, it'll be fine. It'll be ready. That's not going to happen. It's not the way it's created. It's not a glitch. It's the program. It's a predictor. So you'll be able to recognize some, checking facts and different kinds of things, but it'll make some contextual sort of hallucinations too. Like it may assume ideal lab conditions in a real world scenario, or it can emit constraints that engineers know are critical. It can do all sorts of things that you won't know unless you've actually done the learning, right? Multimodal hallucinations is any sort of form of media that it creates beyond text. And I think it's a really good way to just start training yourself to think about hallucinations and errors and biases. So I asked it to generate an image of soldiers in the Vietnam War facing the camera. And you can see from this image, they all look the same, probably have the same mom and definitely the same razor. So that's what it produced for me. And this was just a couple months ago. This is an actual photo of people who served in the Vietnam War. And you can see it's a very diverse and different group than that. So this would be a hallucination because that are not solely all the soldiers in the Vietnam War. So it's a hallucination because it's wrong, but it's also a bias because it's assumed the white, European male in that context. So it's doing 2 things here. It's a good way to just start thinking when you look at images. And bias in AI isn't just historical, right? It's also, it reflects who systems are defined for, who the data represents right now, and assumptions about typical users and engineers. And that's been a problem for engineering forever, right? You're probably aware of how women are much more likely to die in a car accident because the crash test dummies are for a certain 50 percentile of the average man, which women do not qualify. So they're making changes toward that all of the time, but AI is not creating a bias; it's reflecting a bias that we have. It's making assumptions. So AI often assumes a default engineer too. So I asked it today to generate an image of an engineer. That's what it came up with. Pretty much what you would expect, right? A man, able-bodied, average-sized, American or Western, usually mostly white. Engineers work in a very well resourced environment, which is not always accurate. So that's the sort of image and the kind of default it's going to have with content it gives you as well. And and that can be annoying when you don't fit into that group. For sure, that's definitely annoying. But it's bigger than annoying because it's also making general assumptions about everything and everyone. So I asked it to create an image of a person using a city bike share system. It looks like the same guy, but maybe not. But it's doing the same thing again here too, right? A standard body size, a standard voice, a standard reaction times, standard physical abilities, standard environmental context. There are a lot of people that have disabilities and things that use this. So assumptions and those assumptions influence output that it's coming up with, right? It's influencing sensors, recognition systems, safety models, interface design. These are not glitches, they're design defaults. So it's something to think about. Minority users become edge cases, and edge cases in engineering often become failure cases because we're not just treating one, right? So thinking about it, many AI systems are trained on US-based data and English language sources. And most of our work is going to be more global or international than that in many cases. It also tends to favor wealthy urban environments, Western infrastructure models, and that's not because it thinks it's better. It doesn't think. There's just more material out there that it's mining. So whatever it mines, the more and more it sees, the more and more importance it gets. That doesn't mean it's the most important thing for you, for your community, for your project, for your work, none of that. So this affects global engineering, it affects risk models, climate and infrastructure decisions. It doesn't have an ethical concern, right? It's just predicting. So if it may present a best practice, but you have to ask best practices for whom? Who is this best for? And what is the AI leading me to think on that? And why does that matter for engineers? I'm sure that you've heard, or if you haven't now, you will at some point. People say, if a doctor has a bad day, one person dies. If a civil engineer has a bad day, hundreds and thousands can die, right? So thinking about your decisions affect safety, access for all, reliability, and equity. And AI is not neutral. It encodes assumptions, and you're responsible for questioning them. So it scales decisions quickly, which means it also scales mistakes. So thinking about being very skeptical is a good way to look at AI and most things as an engineer. So an engineering approach to AI, think like an engineer, right? So think first. Your creativity, what you come up with, your way of seeing the world and your way of interacting in the world matters so much more than the tool. Like you think about if you're coming up with an idea for something and you're walking around, you see a YouTube video, someone texts you something, somebody's on campus doing juggling or whatever. All of these things are contributing to your creativity, right? So let them. Don't outsource the coolest part of you. And so think, and then after you've thought it out, after you've got you, then ask the tool for any assistance with your work. It's your assistant. It's not your replacement. Then think about attempting it before automating, verifying everything, of course, show your reasoning, and ask AI to extend your thinking. Those are professional habits. That's what we do because in the industry, they've gone through engineering, the major and all of that, and have work experience, so they know what they don't know. We don't yet know. I have no idea what you all know or don't know. I have nothing about engineering. I'm humanities. But right, so you want to think about that. These are professional habits of what they do. But why you are learning now, you want to learn now. So start practicing those skills. And so a final thought about this, I did ask it to generate one image of diverse college students studying. Did a decent job, but you're all ridiculously hot, which I'm sure you are. And but it's still not going to give me real people that may not all be able-bodied and look exactly like that. But okay. But just thinking about yes, AI can make you very efficient, and it's great when you are ready to be efficient at work. Right? But your job is not to be efficient as a student. And I know that there's a million things happening all the time, like work and other classes and all of these demands on your time and all of the dopamine hits we get from social media. All of those things impact our efficiency and the time that we have. But your job as a student isn't to be that. It's to become capable. So Use AI if approved by your professor, but don't let it shortcut the learning that makes you an engineer. Don't, remember that efficiency comes later. You're building the foundation now, that comes first. And that's the only way that you can really future proof your skills. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it talking with you all today. I hope you have a wonderful semester and a great day. Thanks.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another week of GTA Go for Launch. I have a very special announcement this week, and that is on Friday, March 6th at 6 p.m. Steele, that's one of our RSOs in the College of Engineering, they're going to help us out. So any students who are interested in receiving help, if they have any questions on their boat or if they want specific help with their boat hull manufacturing, remember that's going to be Friday, March 6th at 6 p.m. We're going to be down in the atrium helping you guys out.
Thank you. Something to keep in mind going forward for your boat designs, you are going to have to purchase your batteries and your LiPo bags to protect them. Other specifics for your parts are going to be covered by your TAs and lab next week. Just keep in mind you're not going to be receiving any of those parts until you have a completed hull and we can make sure that it floats.
Absolutely. And now for our little updated timeline. So we are now on week 7 of lab. In your lab this week, you have covered a little on-shape tutorial as you would have gone through with your TAs and prepping for that whole design that you're going to have to do with your proposal. Now looking towards next week, we're going to be covering guidance, so different microcontroller options and open and closed loops like that, as well as making your waterproof boxes. So surprise, we actually have enough of these for every single one of you if you want it. If you want to use your own, perfectly fine, but we're going to be making modifications to this for all your electronics in your lab next week. You also might notice that your whole design is being completed after spring break. Everything there will be covered in your lab as well.
So as we get further in the semester, one resource that you'll definitely want to take advantage of is the TI Lab. So here we've got a CAD file, just as an example, and we're going to take a look at how to properly prepare our files for manufacturing in the TI Lab. So starting with this file here, one thing that you can do is right-click on the part down here and click Export. And in the case of 3D printing, you're going to want to choose STL as the file format. Give it whatever name you want. Make sure that format is STL. And then you can go ahead and click Export. And you're going to follow this process, exporting STLs, for every part that you want printed at the TI Lab. So that is how we export STL files for 3D printing, but what about laser cutting? So if you're going to laser cut anything in the TI Lab, what you'll want to do is select a flat face of the part that you're dealing with, like this. Right-click after doing so, and then find the Export as DXF button. So the TI Lab is going to take specifically those DXF files. So just as before, give it whatever file name you desire, and then make sure that that format is DXF. Now let's take a look at some documents with some more helpful info. So when it comes to 3D printing, especially for those of you who maybe don't have a ton of experience in the area, do remember that the lab assistants at the TI Lab are here to help you. So if you have any questions, always a good idea to run your ideas and your parts past the assistants at the TI Lab. Another thing is remember that they are not here to print your entire boat hull. So once you've followed all the instructions and you're ready to get your parts made at the TI Lab, you're going to go ahead and email innovationlab@ucf.edu, and then you can swing by the TI Lab and let the lab techs know that you're ready to begin printing your part. Do keep in mind though, with 3D printing, many people might be using it at once, and it does take time to 3D print parts. So don't expect to get the part right away. There might be a little bit of a wait. And then in the case of laser cutting, remember you're going to want to export that DXF file. So on the right here, we've got a table of line thicknesses and line colors to use if you're generating that DXF file with other programs. If you're doing it in Onshape, then you're just going to follow these simple instructions that we saw earlier. Some notes about the laser cutting with DXF files. Once again, you're going to email that file to innovationlab@ucf.edu. Make sure that you are very clear in your email what it's for and that you're being respectful to everyone working at the TI lab. Another thing that you can do is ask your lab TA if we have any materials available for laser cutting to provide the class. If not, then that's something that you might want to account for in your team's budget. Okay, if you have any more questions about boat manufacturing, make sure to respectfully ask them to your lab TA. Now let's move on to the TA Spotlight.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this week's segment of TA Spotlight. We're here in the GTA office with TA Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison. Nice to meet y'all.
And this week in lecture, we're talking about generative AI and its applications in engineering education. So I've got Allison to talk about that today, and we've got some interesting ideas to discuss. So it's kind of a weird world that we're living in since this generative AI boom. Personally, generative AI isn't all bad. I've used it for my own continuum mechanics class. There were some problems that I was having trouble with and some things that I couldn't even find information about online or in my textbook. So I turned honestly to ChatGPT. I asked it about some steps to take in a math problem that I was solving, and then I was very committed to kind of taking the rest of the steps upon myself and really learning based on the struggle of solving that math problem instead of letting chat solve it all for me ahead of time. Do you have any other similar experiences or thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great as a starting point, but you do kind of have to have, the knowledge of what you're doing to be able to really use it effectively. So, like in my experience, it's good to also help check things and stuff. If you do a problem and then you're like, something about this doesn't feel quite right, to go through and help you check that and make sure I tend to miss signs and stuff a lot, so it can really help find that. But you do kind of have to know what you're doing for it to really be effective to you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. You make a good point. There are some things that's very good at catching, like sign errors or some of the very logistical things in solving the math problem, but maybe the reasoning or the physics intuition behind it, these programs don't understand. So we always kind of need a human in the loop to kind of check the output and stuff like that.
Yeah, it doesn't really know what specifically you're trying to do or anything. It doesn't have that intuition, human intuition.
Exactly. So good for automation, though.
Yeah.
That part's good. And speaking of being kind of cautionary when it comes to some of the results or outputs that these generative models can produce, I know two really big things that we touched on in lecture are bias and hallucination. And I'm sure everyone who's ever touched a large language model has experienced this, but bias, being the fact that these are trained on data sets. And if there's any skew in the data that these are pulling from, it's naturally going to be reflected in the output of the program. In addition, the hallucinations. These models can, with absolute confidence, tell you something that is 100% not true, or even make up sources that actually don't exist. So again, having a human in the loop is super important. I know I once asked for help with a software that I was learning on the spot. So I was like, oh, let me just turn to an AI model to kind of help me figure out what I'm doing. And it told me to press a bunch of buttons that were actually just not there. So something to keep in mind. I definitely learned my lesson there about hallucination. But have you had any similar experiences?
Yeah. Last year, we don't do the assignment anymore, but we had an assignment for the fall semester of this class, Intro to Engineering. And it was just a very basic, random number guesser kind of program we were making. And one of the students tried to use AI for it, not having any experience with coding in C or anything, no programming experience beyond what we taught them in class. And so he told the AI to do whatever the assignment was, and it came out as complete nonsense. It wouldn't compile, and it was, I think he just kept running it through and running it through and running it through.
Yeah.
It's like the Google Translate game or whatever, where you put a sentence in and then you put it through 5 different languages and it comes out completely nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just unfixable. So, if you don't have the starting point to really know what you're trying to do and be able to check it and fix it, it's practically useless.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Having that foundational knowledge is kind of like the entry point. The AI is there to help increase your efficiency, but it can't replace just like your actual knowledge. And then lastly, Allison, another topic that I really want to drive home when it comes to these generative AI models is the ethics of us as users. Ultimately we can discuss all the flaws of hallucinations and bias baked into the model, but we're the ones using it. So the ultimate responsibility is with us. I know two of the things that really are ethical concerns are disclosing use of AI, especially in academic and professional work, as well as worrying about the copyright infringement that might, for better or worse, be incorporated into these models as they're trained. So starting off with the disclosure, we saw in the presentation from Lori earlier that it's a good idea, it's best practice to tell people and be transparent every time you use AI. Even if you think you can pull it off and kind of slide it under the radar, you never know, and you certainly don't want to be caught. So it's definitely better to kind of ask for the permission rather than the forgiveness when it comes to your academic career. And then in addition to the copyright thing, I know that's been a huge ethical concern that's not exactly been resolved. I know in the Supreme Court it was kind of debated as to whether or not this content is protected by copyright. Is there anything that you have to kind of expand on that?
Yeah, that stuff is it's hard to legislate, and there's no precedent for it also. The big example is AI is being trained off of people's art and, music and everything. So there's no way to know where it actually came from and be able to cite those sources and stuff. And as it relates to us in engineering, if it's getting this information for its data or whatever, and we don't know where it came from, it's so hard to be able to actually cite that information correctly. And that also kind of leads into bias. We don't actually know where it's coming from exactly. So it's hard to properly cite it.
That's a good point. Starting out in our academic careers as students, but then leading on to our professional careers, we need to know exactly what we're citing and exactly where our data is coming from. We're responsible for people's safety at the end of the day, and we can't afford to have a hallucinated or biased source in our research. And it's one thing if chat just says, oh yeah, your calculations are good, but if you never check that, or if it's pulling data from something that's completely made up, that's something that needs to be known as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we're able to discuss this. I'm glad that our students are able to hear about it sooner rather than later, especially. I think being ethical AI users is definitely part of being a 21st century citizen and student at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really become such a big part of our lives at this point.
Out of nowhere in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would love for our students to be able to increase their efficiency and become better workers while also kind of keeping these safeguards in place.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Allison, for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It was a great chat.
Yep.
For our students out there, I hope you have learned more about generative AI and the ways that you can safely apply it in your work. And that's it for this week's segment of TA Spotlight. Thank you.
Bye.
It's so hard to network at UCF. I wish there was someone that could help me.
Hi, my name's Chloe, and I heard you're in need of some help.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what's your name again?
I'm Chloe, and I represent Engineers Without Borders at UCF.
What's that? And how do you know I'm an engineer?
A feeling. Also, I'm glad you asked.
Engineers Without Borders is a non-profit organization of students and professionals designing sustainable solutions all around the globe. Here, at the UCF chapter, you'll build real leadership skills, work on real-world projects, and make friends.
Did you say projects?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Our current project is in partnership with a community in Santa Rosa, Guatemala. We're designing a reliable spring water supply and storage system. You see, you could either build projects for a grade, or you could build projects that change lives. At Engineers Without Borders, you gain hands-on experience that can boost your resume and strengthen your professional profile.
That's just what I was looking for. Where can I learn more about this project?
Join us for a project interest meeting on Tuesday, March 3rd at 7:30 p.m. in Business Administration 1, room 213. Come learn more about the project and how you can get involved.
How can we stay in touch?
Oh, I almost forgot! Silly me! Follow us on Instagram and join our Discord to stay up to date.
Thank you, Globey. I'll see you there.
Bye, Ella! I'll see you all next Tuesday!